All right, today's lecture is about literary criticism. And literary criticism is the kind of study, evaluation, interpretation of literature. We're doing it right now with the Scarlet Letter. Modern theory criticism is often influenced by literary theory. And theory and criticism are two different things, as we'll see in a moment. But basically, it's just a philosophical discussion about a piece of work, and there are different titles and different kinds of theory, and we'll talk about those as we progress. Today, what I really want to do is just give you an overview, just an overview of literary criticism and the theories. We had a quick little presentation about the differences between literary criticism and theory by Dr. Barbat. And there is a difference, and I hope that you remember that literary criticism is the evaluation of the work, and the theory are the different frameworks in which we evaluate. This is a main difference, and you really need to understand that one is the practice of doing it, and the other is the way that it is done. Why should we even care about literary criticism? What's the value in it? Well, literary criticism is valuable because it's useful to us as readers and interpreters of literature as we analyze things, as we see the universal themes in things. Criticism is a great tool for evaluating literature. The first one I want to talk about is Plato. And we've talked a little bit about Plato before. We've studied his theory and Plato in detail. And he really used the visual world as an imitation for the ideal world. And we learned that through the allegory of the cave. He felt that there was a complete connection between art and literature and beauty and good to the soul. And he felt a little differently than Aristotle, but we're going to talk about that basically later on in the semester. But basically the aims of Plato are examining the moral, ethical, and historical effects of a work of art. Aristotle felt a little different. Aristotle was one for the state. He wanted everything to be for the betterment of everyone. And so he had a different view of art, and we'll get into that more in the semester. Again, right now I'm just giving you an overview, but one of the big things that Aristotle did contribute to literature was our ways of evaluating through ethos, logos, and pathos. And then the catharsis, or going through an emotion as you're reading, and we'll talk about that in greater detail. Another one of the theories is the moralist literary theory, and really it deals with ethics and morality, and probably began really in our American universities when we were becoming a country. Schools like Harvard, they had moralistic literature. They looked at things morally. They looked at what God would think or how God would look at something. Another one of the theories that we're going to talk about is historical biographical, and it's probably one of the easier ones that students look at. Historical biographical theory, and here is a picture of Phyllis Wheatley, who is the first American female poet. She came here from Barbados, was a slave, was very gifted. Her family recognized her gifts, and we're actually through the semester going to read a lot of her poetry. It's quite beautiful. But historical biographical theory is based on when it was written, the facts about the author's life, the historical and social things that surround him. And she's a really good one to think about when we look at historical biographical, because we look at her life and how her life influenced her writings. The other one is a formal literary theory, where we look at diction, syntax, punctuation, and Shakespeare's a great example of that. We look at all the different ways that he creates visual images and how he does it, how he makes us feel certain ways, how in many ways he manipulates us as a reader. Then there is the rhetorical theory, and this refers to looking at symbolic artifacts in the writing, phrases, gestures, and we can use a rhetorical and all these theories to not only look at works of literature, but film and movies and different things. Rhetorical criticism puts the focus on the piece of work all by itself, kind of almost just the opposite of historical biographical. Historical biographical, we are looking at what is connecting to the piece of work, and with rhetorical, we are just looking at the work. The last one I'm going to talk to you about today is Freudian theory, and you probably have heard that phrase before, and I know that many of you as freshmen read Lord of the Flies, and so you probably have talked about the id, the ego, and the super ego in the character of Ralph. It's really about what's on the conscious and unconscious and the preconscious levels, and Freud is very interesting theorist and a very interesting way to look at literature. And like I said, this is just an overview, so we will get into it in more detail later on in this semester. I'd like you, when you have time, to watch this video, The Id, the Ego, and the Superego, explained by Cat in the Hat. It's kind of a fun way to look at it. So please do that in your free time this evening. That's all that I have for you in lecture today. If you have any questions, please email me, and I will see you next week. Bye-bye.